This is
And Buck's done so many of these, so I mean,
God.
you host your own thing. You just roll
everybody's
it.
talking and I'm introducing. I love it.
Oh,
You're a great producer, Curnal. This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for The Rant with Barbara Rose Brooker and her two wonderful guests. I think you already heard their voices. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you, Karen. And first, I want to say happy holiday and all blessings for the coming year to my guests and to my listeners. And Karen, thank you for having me on every week to rant. And I'm just so blown away by my guests today. And first, listeners, I'm not going to stammer and stumble. I'm going to read just a little bit to introduce the first guest, Buck Angel, worldwide famous Buck Angel. Oh my God, there's so much to say about him. I can't even look down. But, you know, let me just start by saying, in this world, I feel, in our culture, our anti-culture, where we define people by age, by race, by color, by genitalia. Everybody is defined and segregated. And it's a world that I feel is very divided, and I pray someday that we'll all be people living together without labels and definitions. And so Buck Angel is the guru of that, I say. He's a motivational speaker. I'm not reading now because I'm just very overwhelmed by it. He's a motivational speaker. He is an advocate for transgender rights and humanity, and he's an entrepreneur. He's so many things. If I may say this, Buck has a vagina, and he loves his vagina. And Buck is all man, he says, and he's normal, listeners. And he says, I am not an oddity. I'm a person. I'm a normal person. And so many, and I say genitalia does not make who you are anyway. And it's such an old, ancient thing. And Buck is a leader for all of us. So that's Buck Angel, and only a teeny bit because I watched a 2-hour documentary about Buck and his life the other night, last Saturday night, on Amazon Prime. And I sat here not only fascinated and moved, but I had tears in my eyes because, and I do now, because it's so authentic. It's not some of these, documentaries we've seen that are supposed to get you all riled up and, oh my God, isn't that, this is about a man and his journey, like we're all on a journey. And it was wonderful. There's movies about Buck. Go on buck.com, buckangel.com, and you can see, and there's going to be more movies about Buck and series. Our second guest, Curnal. And Curnal, I never can pronounce your last name, Curnal Aluisio.
I can barely pronounce it.
Oh, Aluisio.
Right on.
It's Aluisio.
Oh, Aluisio. Aluisio.
Way too many vowels in there. That's just the Italian way.
And I know Curnal is a well-known actor and a producer of many TV shows. He's the real thing. He's in the bread industry in Hollywood. He is a gorgeous man, a human man, a sweet man, and he takes chances in life. And he believes, he's not one of those producers, listeners, who for ratings, I'm going to do this. He does things, he makes choices. And he is also an advocate for human justice. And he's about the people. And he's producing, to give you an example, he agreed to produce the first virtual age march in history. And it's in production right now. So my two guests, I'm going to start with one question, which I did write down for Buck, and we need hours for Buck. So I had to compress this into one question. Buck, tell us what it took to own your identity. I know that it takes hours to say that, but why you decided to make it your life's work to help others who are born one way and feel another, to make their choices and to honor their identities. And that goes for all of us, no matter what our genitalia is or choices are.
First off, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for that amazing introduction. You're hired. So that being said, it took a lot, and you're right. I'll take up the whole show, but in a nutshell, I think the one thing I can say to the listeners and the people out there is to not want validation from the rest of the world. That's a very hard space to get into. But once you realize the only validation you ever need is from your own self, and once you find that space, it's actually your heart. And once you connect to that space that says, I don't need for people to tell me I'm okay if I know I'm okay. So that really is how I learned to sort of accept myself as a different outsider in the world, and to realize that I have to create a coexistence with the world in order to move forward. So it was really just about self-love, really.
And how old were you when you felt this wonderful thing that I'm Buck, I'm okay? I mean, it started.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it took a long time. So I would say, I transitioned from a female to a male 26 years ago now. And so that it took at least the first 10 years were a nightmare. Then the next 10 years, so I would say in the last 10 years is when I really connected and realized my body, on some level, I use my body as my activism. So that really became a more activism space than it did become just this, I'm this guy. I really used my body as a means and a way to educate the world about people like myself.
That to me is so interesting, because so many trans kids that I have interviewed were concerned with one thing: bottom surgery, changing their genitalia. And I think that was often very sad and not a good outcome, because they already know who they are.
That's right. So we put a lot of emphasis on our genitals, right? And so I, as a man, I'm like, oh, I got to get a penis because I'm not a man. And I kept being told that from the world. And once I realized it's just not going to happen for many reasons, but it's just not going to happen. What am I going to do? Sit around and like be a baby for the rest of my life? I was tired of being a baby, and I was tired of worrying what other people thought about me. And it's my body. So why? It's mine. It's not yours.
It's such a lesson for everybody listening to this, and for all of us. And going over to Curnal, which is so interesting. Curnal, you choose your projects. This is what interests me. Your TV shows, and even Age March, and you working with Buck. I won't say anything else, but you're working with Buck in I'm sure you're going to be doing something about him. How do you define your choices? How do you make your choices? You don't do it just for the ratings. What drives you?
No, that's true. That's true. When it's there, I mean, there's always a lot of factors to take in, because as just a that the balance between what the passion is and what we're driven towards creatively, and if you're blessed and in that position where you can make choices because you have those kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of need already set. You've got enough money to survive, you got a roof over your head, you've got those things, now I can make choices. And as I get more and more into that space, thank God, I do look for these opportunities to align myself with people like you, Barbara, and with people like Buck, that are the true like heroes and courageous people, courageous in a way that I'm not, that I aspire to be. And so it's almost like I aspire to put myself in the company of courageous people, so that I can help. And push things forward. There's lots going on in the world across, that it's tumultuous, and we're in this really it always is, but we're in this really tough time. And I do believe that the way to get through it is doing what we're doing, which is it starts with the interpersonal. It starts with the one-on-one. I'm going to go outside my comfort zone and I'm going to do this. And people like yourself, Barbara, like Buck, who have done this for years in a really intense, like courageous way with lots of, to me, I'm like, it's the least I could do to get outside my comfort zone in any way and put myself out there. And I think that example is what I want to do, is why I pick the projects. I want to be able to show people the example to come out of the darkness and into the light.
Wow.
Wow. Well, you're a hero, that's for sure, because you're bringing it to the people. So the people out there, the people in various, the religious fanatics, the this, the that, the this, the that, eating their popcorn can go, oh, wow. And just what you said, to be yourself, Buck, I'm thinking too, there's so much that you're doing right now. What is your dream as you're going through the journey of bringing your story to the world through movies, documentaries, speaking? You're a motivational speaker all around the world. Buck Angel is getting to be a household name, because when I mention Buck Angel to people, oh, oh my God.
That's pretty amazing considering where I came from. So it really speaks volumes to people are actually expanding their minds, because I can tell you before, because if your listeners don't know, I came from, a sex workspace. I started in pornography 20 years ago.
Yes.
And so really that's a space that many people don't want to touch. And I understand it for many reasons. But that being said, today people do, I have to say also, Curnal, we need people like you. Without you, my voice also doesn't get to that space, and Barbara. So people like you guys are the catalyst on some level to get these voices that a lot of people don't want to hear, as you know, because it's a very structured space in the world. People want to hear very specific things. They don't want to hear certain kinds of things. So when you reach out and find these kinds of stories and bring them to the world, you are part of creating that change. So it takes a lot.
But I'm so glad that you said that, because when we started newclevelandradio.net, it was to bring these subjects out. And, we know we don't have a wide range of listeners yet, but we know we're getting there because people know that we're not afraid to talk about the hard questions. I have 3 nieces and nephews that are either in the process of being trans or have already trans. And 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have wanted to talk about this.
Nope.
Because not only would you have been an obstacle, but then we would have been an obstacle in our group. Today, I go out and I share it, because you know what? They are the same people they were before they went through this. So thank you for your voice, and Barbara bringing these 2 great people to us. It's getting the word out that we are okay for who we are, and we are 4 different people.
That's right. Look at all of us are so different.
Yes.
And it's I always say it's not even about being trans. It's about humanness, humanity. Why are we so divided in this world? Why are we all labeled like plants?
Fear, fear plays a lot into that. And I have to tell you, even in my own community, as you were saying, Karen, your niece and nephew, it is becoming something now. Trans is totally different than from when I transitioned. It is now very accepted. There's a lot of youngsters going through stuff. There's layers of stuff. But that being said, we're talking about it, where before it was slid under the table, or I was told all kinds of other things. But the only way this is happening is because of people like you guys really letting those voices. People are scared of trans people. They're scared of us.
It's just amazing to me, because it really is just about being people. And when you mention the porno, I think pornography is an art.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
it's an art, and I think it's a beautiful art.
Thank you.
And I don't understand why even that has a negative connotation to it. So you're bringing that much more to the forefront.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I am, but it hasn't been easy. People are very upset about the whole pornography thing. But, you know, again, I'm the guy who's willing to take the chance. I still am today. I'm outspoken on a lot of things that, you know, my community's in, you know, separation about. I speak out a lot about transitioning young children. I speak out a lot about things I disagree with, because today we're not allowed to speak out. We have cancel culture. We have all these things, but I'm not fearful of that because I made it. I made it to this space, and I believe I made it in order to be able to show the world you have to speak your mind. No matter what people say, you have to speak your mind.
Right. You really do. And I do believe that there is something behind, there is a fate, there is a higher power, I'll call
Yes.
it,
Yes.
who is, you're guided, you feel it, you have to keep
I
going.
do.
Because you're probably only just beginning. And the same with Curnal, who has produced so many different kinds of shows and reality shows. And I have a feeling, I don't know Curnal, but it feels like that you're going into new directions now too with your producing and your projects.
Well, yeah, and you know, you all brought up something that was, I think, an important thing to bring up. You brought up pornography and the kind of like disparaging view of pornography, and I just want to say that this is something I think Buck is doing, is that because of there's the way that their public perception is on transgenderism, and it's seen through a very specific lens from both sides, but it's always in this kind of like, it's almost like this adversarial separate lens of like the other and different and who's on which side. And that's what I think Buck is doing. The number one thing I think you're doing, Buck, that is it's a game changer, is that you're accessible. You're a guy I can hang out with and have a beer with. And I'm like, wait, what? That's different.
Right on,
Breaking
dude.
what is out there right now. And that's the key. You're a happy warrior. You know, it's like, that's what we need. It's like, oh, then it like lowers the temperature and everyone's like, oh, I can get along. Now we can then we can talk about all the issues that go along with transgenderism, because we're like, okay, we're working together, you know. And I think that's the great thing about this. And yeah, that popped up to me as you all were talking about it.
But you see, our relationship really to the world can show that, because again, to the world, people still see me as a woman because I was born a woman, and look at me, I'm the ugliest woman in the world. But that being said, people still see that. So when Curnal comes to me as just a dude, and I'm just a dude, which is how a lot of my friends are just dudes like Curnal. And like he said, we can hang out, we can have a beer, we could just talk. And I so appreciate that, Curnal, that you've voiced that to the world, because that is my ultimate goal. It's called unity and coexisting. We are not the same, Curnal. We are different men, and we will always be different men. But what we respect is our own space in the world. And how come you are like that? I want to know how Curnal's brain is like that, and how come more men where he comes from are not that way. So I think it's really fascinating that
you know, it's interesting you bring that up, because I think that personally, I think most people, whether or not they have something as like societally dramatic as being transgender to make them feel less than or an other, I feel like people feel less than or other. At least I do. And so I take that and I'm like, I think people just generally have that. And there's things that we're all afraid of. Everybody has their own personal journey. And it's just, and so there's tons to relate to. Like, it's like, no, of course we have tons to relate to, because I have that too, you know?
People, and I also think that we have a society that's yes or no, right or wrong. And there's a lot of religious bugaboo behind the whole thing. You know, and that has affected it too. You know, really, I just think that, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, and then the biological thing really bothers me, because I don't think that genitalia means biological, does it?
No, it doesn't, because now you got to talk about intersex people. So intersex people are born with different kinds of genitalia, blah, blah, blah. Now, I do believe in biology, and I actually fight for for that situation, because they are trying to say biology doesn't exist and that we are assigned female and male at birth. I'm totally in disagreement in that, and I'll tell you why. Health. My health depends on my biology. Now, if I walk into a doctor's office, they're just going to see some dude. But if I say, well, wait a minute, doctor, I actually have a vagina and I was born female, he's going to be like, what? And not really understand. But if he understands my history as female and he understands my biological female body, he will be able to give me the proper medical care I need. If you wipe out my biology, you have wiped out health care for people like me. And so that's why I fight for that particular space.
Right. Mental health, healthcare are all, I know they're very important to you.
They're very important, especially mental health. I'll tell you, above and beyond anything else, mental health is the only, I'm telling you, it's the only reason I'm here and alive today, is my therapist, mental health care, and understanding that my brain is the catalyst to everything I do in the world. My body, except everything. And if I don't get my brain straight, nothing else will be straight.
You know, Curnal, you brought up being on a journey, and we are all on a journey, and we change as we get older. There once was a time, probably when I was in my 20s, I looked at somebody who was 70, and I thought, oh, that is a very old person. I turned 70 this year. And I look
oh my God, you look amazing.
But I look in the mirror, and I don't feel 70. Okay. I feel like I still have another 70 years to go.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's what the journey is about. We're changing, and our
Yeah.
views are changing, and we need to be open. And when two of you can bring that to us, and meeting Barbara, and Barbara saying to me on the first phone call that we had together, you know, I don't believe in age. It was like, thank God. I don't have to feel young. I don't have to feel old. I can feel me.
Right on.
It's all about who we are. It really is. But when it comes to mental health, what's so sad to me is I have so many kids, trans kids, who are in transition that I've had the pleasure of talking to over the years for various projects, are really, the mental health part has just done them in. Why? Because of how society is treating them and their own families throwing them out into the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Buck, you have wonderful parents. I fell in love with your parents in the documentary.
Yeah.
And Buck is happily married too.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, for people who don't know, for listeners out there, they think, they go, trans genitalia.
Right.
They're not thinking about the soul, the person,
That's right.
what makes us human beings.
That's right.
And how are you doing it? How are you, through your motivational speaking? Is that?
Yep.
And are you doing that worldwide?
I go all over the world. I mean, before COVID, I had just been in Australia on a 2-week tour there. I went to all 3 cities. I do a lot of that. I'm very blessed. I'll tell you, like, I can't even believe sometimes I'm actually standing in front of, 600 people telling them my story. And I have like actual men crying and coming up to me and saying beautiful, amazing things. And so I just really feel so, grateful that I have found my space in the world. Somebody who was not pointed to this place. I didn't graduate high school. I'm not formally educated. I don't have things. I was homeless. I was, prostitution, suicide attempts. I could go on and on. But my point being is, I do believe that I struggled to get where I am because that struggle is really a part of my space. And I believe that struggle sometimes creates a stronger person. So struggle for the youngsters today is important. I believe in struggle because it creates this means and this way to say, sometimes I'm going to have to struggle in the world to get to that next space.
I agree. I agree. But when you are speaking around the world, what people are responding to is everybody inside wants to be a full human being. They want to be, oh my God, they're thinking, I want to be happy like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel good about myself like that. We've just been brainwashed through, I say, religion and antiquated mores where we're supposed to be.
right.
You know, and
No, it's true. You know, I speak to heads of corporations. Like, these are people who have a lot of money, like sick money. And I know for a fact, I don't care how much money you have, it doesn't matter. I saw lots of sad people in a group of people who have so much money they can have whatever they want. So that's also this idea and this misconception that we have taught the world about material goods, about, you know, I got to work so hard to get to be famous. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, it's all false. And it's giving people a false sense of security, a false sense of myself, a false sense of this whole idea of what it means to be. We need to get people back into a space of literally meditating and understanding the space that you're in, and then going. But I think people are messed up because we have way too much going on, too much of this going in our brain.
That's why it's what you're doing, Buck, and all of you. It's a lead by example thing. You come out there and you're presenting it. You're not preaching. You're being, and that is and when you're happy and you're comfortable in your own skin, and that is so like engaging. It is so attractive. I mean, people. It's like, ooh, I want. People will get up and change when they want something that you have that they don't have.
That's right.
And when that happens, it's like for everyone. If I see someone, I'm like, oh, that person's in a good space, and I want to be there. How do I get there? They're going to start watching, and that's what all of you are doing. That's great. And Buck, you're totally doing that.
Oh, with Buck, I mean, they're not listening to Buck because he has a vagina. They're listening to because he's a full-blown man in person. He has something to say to help others with their mental health and becoming. You're helping people look in
instead of out, because today we are doing too much outside. You know, that's why I see all that nonsense. Everyone's so mad at everyone else if they have a different opinion, or I'm like, since when can't we actually be in the same community but actually have different opinions? I mean, I remember I grew up in the LGBTQ community, and we used to but we're all pretty much understand our ultimate goal. I think what happens is people forget we all have an ultimate goal, and that is to actually exist on this earth together, let everyone do their thing. And once we sort of understand that and come to that, but there's some weird energy going on in the world right now.
It's important to have, and it seems, and I know the answer to this, I think it seems like you just have a sense of humor about it too. Like,
I totally do. Because how, you know, I'm going to tell anyone out there who's listening, laughing at your own self can actually make the whole world amazing. I actually can't even believe that I'm here. It's why I laugh all the time. I'm like, ha, 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 you thought you were going to get me.
Well, everybody has to see that documentary on Amazon.com. It's called Dr. Buck. Dr. Buck.
It's called Mr. Buck. Mr. Angel.
Buck,
Sorry,
right.
Mr. Angel.
Yeah. And it's just incredible. I've been telling everybody about it. I also want to see the movies. And like I say, we could have hours with Buck and not have enough. And because there's so much yet you're still doing. And I know you have dreams of doing more. And then having someone like Curnal who can get the stories out there.
I mean, I can't even believe I met Curnal. Like, I honestly, like, I'm telling you, the universe is, I'm not kidding, Curnal. Like, it's so weird. Like, you just came to me like an angel. It's weird because I know he's going to amplify.
I love this.
You know, you're going to amplify, which is, you know, people haven't always been attached to me like you are, Curnal. They're scared. They're fearful of what are other people going to think about connecting to Buck. Like, I know it. Believe me. I've finally gotten to this space where Curnal sees me. You see me. That's all I care about. Whatever else happens, it doesn't matter. You see me. That's so important.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks,
yeah,
man.
it means a lot
I have
to me.
a question for Curnal. Why Age March? Why do you want to produce this? Because, I mean, to me, it's so important. And I know it's important to Barbara, but what do you see about it?
They said to me early on, and this is something, and you actually brought this up when you talked about turning 70 and when you were younger and looking up at people who are 70 and you're like, oh my God, that's old. It's like the age is the one thing of all these things. Age is the one thing where we are all going through. It's all of us. It doesn't even matter what age you are. Like, you could be 5 years old all the way up.
Right.
That is the one thing. And it hits us. I mean, some people have problems with their weight. Some people have problems with drugs and alcohol or sex problems or all these other, we all have the problem with the age. It's coming. Like you may not feel it, it doesn't matter. And it's true. And I felt it, I have because we all have. And it's like, okay, this is a fun one. This is one that where let's all join the party. And the way Barbara presented it was a way that I'd never heard it presented before with that complete inclusion. Because most people, you can look around and see a bunch of the age discrimination things, and it's always people who are older, who are like, oh, this is age discrimination from these ages up here. But Barbara took it and made it like it's about the entire everybody.
Yes.
And I'm like, damn, that is cool. And that is the way to approach this. And so that's why I was like, yeah, let's jump in and let's do this. And really approach it from a unique perspective.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I connect to Buck so much, and so in awe and so grateful for you and the work you're doing, because age, yes, it's more than ageism and age. It's about, for me, the Age March, people, all genders, all races, everything, getting together and honoring each other and integrating their lives with age equality, age pride. That movement, I think, is important because it can integrate, don't you think, Buck, with mental health and every community. And I'm very grateful that you're going to be on Age March too, Buck, because I'm so hoping the LGBTQIA community as well will get behind it.
Well, I'm going to bring them on board, so don't worry about that. Yeah, I'm bringing everybody, my friend. Yeah, you better watch.
Hope you got enough seats at the table.
Totally. I'm bringing everybody, because I love it. I love the whole platform. It's so important that we talk about age. As an elder trans man and one of the oldest out there, really, really speaking.
How old are you? I didn't even.
I'm 58 years old.
Baby.
Yeah, right on. But it's old. It's old for my community. It's just a young community right now. And so they,
say that, because in the Age March, I personally don't like labels senior, elder, we're people. But however, that's so interesting that you just said for your community that is old. You're my daughter Susie's age.
Oh, right on. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't feel old, but when 20-year-old trans kids see a 58-year-old trans man, I'm like, what? They don't even get it.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And of course, when Susie called and said Curnal's going to produce it, I thought you're kidding, because Curnal gets it.
He totally gets it. There's no doubt about it. And it's really weird because we haven't met in person, Curnal and I, because of COVID, but I do feel a connection there. And it just connected for me. I'm like, oh yeah, you're the dude.
We're all
Age March. Barbara's been involved in every aspect of production as we've been doing. It's heating up, and when this thing, I don't want to oversell it, but it's gonna be killer.
It's going to sell itself. It's going to sell itself because it is actually a brilliant idea. And again, it creates unity. And so that's really a lot of my platform, is creating unity and coexisting. This word coexist is very powerful, and people forget that. We don't have to ride over each other. I don't need to be like I'm a man now and all men have vaginas and blah, blah, blah. I don't need to do that. I need to coexist with you and say, I'm a different kind of man. I'm a transsexual man. You're a biological man. It's okay to have those things, but what happens is people get very mad. And I'm seeing it happen in the female world, where trans women are women, no doubt, but they're trying to sort of change the word of the identity of woman. And it's upsetting to women who were born women. So we need to learn that coexistence space creates more of a unity space. I think so.
What you just said is exactly what that's right. That's what it's all about. Right. That's what humanity is all about.
Right.
And as the holidays are coming too, this is a message, listeners. Don't you think, Karen, this is the message that everyone has to hear? Unity, acceptance, self-acceptance. Stop stigmatizing and stereotyping. Let's be people, especially now with what's going on. Oh my God. And even though we haven't met in person, I feel closer to you and to Curnal because look at the screens. We're
Right next to each other.
I mean, how often do you ever just spend an hour staring directly at somebody?
Right, exactly.
No.
Unless it's porn. Just kidding.
No, you're not.
Can they 84-year-old with pink hair today?
I love
Oh,
it.
it looks
That was
amazing.
perfect.
I love
That
it.
was
Love it.
No, I just have to tell you, this morning I wrote my blog, and my blog really was about this and not even knowing anything about the two of you. And I do that on purpose before I come to these podcasts. I don't want to know too much because I want it to feel authentic.
Send names, that's it.
But
Yeah.
this morning, my blog basically said, it's time that we find our inner self. We have to love ourselves first. And once we find that,
Mm.
then we can love everybody else around us. And it
Mm.
took me almost 60 years to get to this point. And now it just feels so right. I have to tell you, Buck, if I would, like I said, if I would have met you 20, 30 years ago, I probably would have looked at you like out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
But now you are this most beautiful person, male, female, it doesn't matter to me. You are a beautiful person.
Well, I
Thank
think
you. That means so much.
to him at any time.
Yeah.
I love very attractive and Curnal.
I think the ladies are flirting with us, Curnal.
Yes,
What I want to say without taking up any more of your time is first to thank you so much for giving your precious time to this podcast with Karen and myself. Really, it means so much. And also to wish you both and Karen too, just all blessings, health, good mental health, and continued work where your work's just going to expand. I have a feeling both of you, great things are going to be happening this coming year. And it's an honor to work with you, Curnal. I don't tell you enough. It really is. It's a dream come true.
Oh,
And
my
to
pleasure.
have met Karen and to work with you, Karen. And Buck, whether you like it or not, BFF now, you're going to get all those emails and things. So thank you so much. And for listeners, if you want to know more about Buck, go to buckangel.com. It's ANGEL, buckangel.com. And to meet Curnal and to know much more about him, Curnal, what is your website? I forget.
Oh, I don't have a website. If you want to find out about me or whatever,
Just
go to
go to
Facebook.
Pornhub/Curnal. Just kidding.
Facebook. And
That's the next project. The next project.
everybody, don't forget the first virtual Age March, Age Magnificent, because everyone at every age is magnificent and can age magnificently. Go to agemarch.org and look at the website. It's going to be March 20th. Don't miss this. It's global. It's international. It's one of a kind. And join Age March. Please join Age March and please endorse Age March. And I'm Barbara Rose Brooker. You can reach me at barbararosebrooker.com. And thank you. Merry Christmas.
Happy
Thank you. Merry
holidays,
Christmas.
everybody.
Happy
Christmas, yeah.
holidays. Right on.